Dear friends, I hope you all are well and keeping safe. I am in beautiful LA today, and my hotel is right next to the airport. So if I look outside this window, right here by the curtain, I can see the tarmac of the airport. I'll be there soon. I have a flight back home. So I thought I'll use this time to record a video for you. What I have for you today. I have read about 22 books so far in this year. Besides that, I have also very recently started listening to podcasts, mostly Lex Friedman and some of Joe Rogan's as well. This I got into because of my son. Thanks to him, great learnings and a lot of great personalities I've seen in those podcasts. What I want to do is there are many lessons I have learned. Some of them I'm inculcating them in my day-to-day life. Some I'm experimenting with. Some I'm intrigued but not too sure. So I thought I'll share those with you so that you can also learn. Provide your feedback. Let me know what you think about it. Maybe you can also experiment alongside me, and we can have something going between us as we go along this path. I'm going to share all of those with you today. I look forward to hearing your feedback. So here I go. I have a cheat sheet with me so that I can keep honest to all the 22 points that I have noted down. And the first one is dopamine rush. We all know dopamine. We all need that dearly. But what is happening wrong in the society today is the false gratification of dopamine because of social media. Particularly, I want to draw your attention to the reels, the short videos that we have, YouTube shorts, for example, the TikTok channel that you have, for example. These are short videos, as you see them, that again moves to the next video. And by the time you realize you spent too much time in that. One of the great things about these videos is, they are algorithm driven. So if you like certain topics, certain kind of things, it'll keep providing you the similar kind of content. So you are stuck to that and you spend hours going through that and getting false gratification, in my opinion, and that's false dopamine rush. My thought is that we should take a break from that. Do we need dopamine? Of course we need, but we need to get in a more natural way so you can get a more natural gratification. I actually experimented this year. I took a break for about 10 months. Jan of this year was my last post. I think middle of Jan was my last post on my social media after I came back from Australia, and I stopped posting anything up until recently. So I just started about a week or two back, and it was a great endurance exercise. In the beginning it was rough and tough, but I literally deleted the social media so that I don't have access to it. And by doing so, I was having a lot of peace. That real concept or the short video concept went away from my life, and I could concentrate my mind on getting some real dopamine. I just came back again, not to look at the reels again or to scum back to my old habits, but just to connect back with my friends, just to share some of my thoughts and stories as well. But I am mindfully staying away, getting into that algorithm based reel or short videos so that my attention is completely taken away accordingly. So that's one thing I want to call out. You tell me what you feel about it, and you can provide me your feedback accordingly. Number two is boredom. It's kind of related, right? I personally felt that boredom is not a right thing up until recently, right? You should not be staying idle. If you have nothing to do, my dad used to say, don't do it here. So I always used to keep myself something or the other. And I recently realized after reading some books that, including books like Outlive, listening to Yuval Noah Harari, who's a historian on Lex podcast, that boredom is a great thing and you should practice boredom, because boredom kind of let you live with yourself, and which is so very important. We are always living with someone, with office work, with personal commitments, and even if you're alone, we are living with thoughts. So can you live without thought? What is happening today is that moment we are bored, we'll pick that phone up. It's easy access to, as I said before, dopamine, and we'll go through your channels, go through your social media portfolio and see things even if you don't want to. It's naturally going to that with a subconscious mind. Practice boredom, because boredom leads to meditation. I am very bad in meditation. My family is very good. My wife does great meditation, so is my son, and my daughter is also into it. I practicing, but I failed. But that's where you clear your mind and maybe access to certain part of your brain which you have not accessed before. So that's another thing that I want to call out and see what you think about it. I am still a learner in that, a novice in that perspective, and trying to see how I can practice more boredom. Third is taking break. It's so important to take break. I'll give a very simple example that happened with me recently. I am, by the way, doing experimenting with creating a new travel website which I recently launched. I'm going to talk about a little later, maybe in a different video, which is all about my travel log. And in this particular example I want to give, this last Sunday I was trying to put this whole thing on a hosting server so I can make it live, connect it back to the domain I bought, and then also connect it back to a database from where the data is going to come. And no matter how much I tried, the connectivity with the cloud database was not working. And I tried all different means. It is a very simple thing to happen, but my data was not coming back as I wanted, hence my site was getting broken all the time. I started around 10 in the morning, and believe me, off and on, I worked on it until 10 in the night, and it was not working. And finally, I thought of taking a break. I did take a break. I hit the gym. I took a hot shower and I went to bed. Next day morning, I opened up the code. Within 15 minutes, I was able to solve it. There are many examples as such while taking a break really helps you to see things clearly. Something with a mind, their subconscious mind, which you do not have access to when you sleep or you move away from the topic. I may not know exactly, but I've read in books that you get access to a subconscious mind, and hence you solve bigger problems. Yuval Noah, who is known for his book *Sapiens*, *Homo Deus*, recently has written Nexus, excellent book. I just finished it yesterday. Um, if you see, he takes a month break so that he can get the next best idea. That's what he spoke to Lex about in his podcast. And it was great to know that when he goes there, he goes without any social media, without any person as well in his life. It is him, his thoughts, his pen, and his notebook, and he writes down everything that comes to his mind continuously without correcting, so that he can understand what's going in his mind and he can play his thoughts accordingly. So you may not have the 1 month in your life, but if you can take those few hours of break off and on, it can immensely help you, and it has helped me. So I thought I'll share that with you. On number four, number four, yes, what I want to talk about is self-correcting. See, the reason democracy works so well is because it is self-correcting, right? So if the president and the prime minister are not making the right point, there's a House and a Senate to correct. There's a Supreme Court who can question the judgment and things of those nature. The beauty of self-correcting is it kind of tells you that at the end of the day, you can be wrong and you can be corrected. As a person, if I take it on me, for example, when we cannot be always right, when we say something at times with conviction, we may at that point in time think that we are right, we are absolutely correct in what you're thinking. But as we expand our knowledge, as we hear more, as we read more, or maybe listen more, you oftentimes come to know that what your prejudice, your thought process was may not be accurate, and you may like to correct it, and a good human being will go and acknowledge it, correct it, so that you can steer accordingly. So practice that. That's another thing that I wanted to share with you. This was also spoken by Yuval Noah Harari in his book Nexus, very deeply, which links it back to AI, which I'm going to talk about it later in the video today. Number six is finding time for yourself. We are so busy in our day-to-day life, and we always blame it on either the routine that we follow, and we're not able to find time. I think it's so important that you should be able to spend time with yourself, where you can collectively work on anything that you love to, your hobby you want to pursue. There is no tomorrow, and life is too short, and too short to repent as well. So take up that hobby that you have been long waiting for. Find that time out in your life, and you can always find time for you. I do not believe in that concept where people say, I'm so busy, I cannot find time. Here is my point. If you love something, you'll always find time. If you find that you're not able to find time, it's just because you're distracted. Just like for people as well, if you love someone, you'll always find time for that person, no matter how busy you are. So that's another thing I want to leave you with. Number seven is exercise. I've spoken about that point so many times, and so very important. Not only as you grow old, which is equally critical, but also to ensure that things you take for granted in a day-to-day life can become challenging as you grow old. With the intervention of medicine, our life expectancy has have grown. So typically, in 70s, and if you can really live, you can live a good life, you can actually go to 80s. But there's nothing known as living a long life, but with ailments, right? It's not a good life to live for, and that's what the book Outlive, Dr. Peter Attia talks about. But if you want to live a long life, you also want to have longevity with healthy lifestyle, and that's where exercise comes into play. There are different modes and forms of exercise that you can formulate accordingly, but moving is very important. Getting off your sofa, getting out, being in the nature, if nothing else, or hitting the gym, challenging yourself so that you can tune your body, you can look good when you look in front of the mirror, or you can keep your vital stats up there where you want to. So very important. As I said, certain things we take for granted, which including things like brushing your teeth. As you grow old, if you're not able to control yourself well, you'll not be able to brush your teeth if you are not in a good shape or form. So again, enough said about it. Please, if not hitting the gym, at least go out for a walk, do something, move your body. Number eight, experiment with formulating habits. I always have seen books written and big scholars talking about how you can get rid of bad habits, and I have a different point of view on that. Right? Typically, there are books written, like Charles Duhigg. He has written a great book on Power of Habit, where he talks about how you can change your habit by changing the loop. I have spoken about that in many videos. Like habit, for example, very short, has something that you desire, so there's a trigger, and hence there's a routine. And while your happiness quotient cannot be changed, you can change the routine so that you can have a trigger. Whenever you have a trigger, you can change the routine to have the happiness that you want to. Anyways, there's a great book written by Charles Duhigg. There's Atomic Habit as well. There's another book which is nicely written on many topics, spoken about habits and how you can change it. My take is a little different. Not different, I totally acknowledge with them, but what I'm trying to say is that instead of trying to get rid of a habit which is so difficult, why don't you first experiment formulating a new habit, a good habit for sure. As I said in my seventh point, exercise. It could be taking a walk, it could be simple things in your life, but it is very important to bring a routine and a practice around it. The reason I said that, say this, is because if you practice in getting a habit which you have never done before, it's an easier path. And if you are rightfully doing everything that you need to, you can practice, inculcate, bring it back to your life. You'll get hope that yes, you can formulate a habit, and if you can formulate a habit, then you can follow to get rid of a bad habit that you have, whichever that you think is a bad habit. Although Shakespeare has very famously said, there's nothing good or bad in this world, only our thinking makes it so. So it's very relative what you think about it, but again, an important point to think about. Number nine is understanding culture. This year in Jan, my first book that I read was a book of fiction. It's Rising Sun, about it and about Japanese culture in the U.S. And it's a very famous book. There's a movie also made on this book, and the book talks about the culture, the how Japanese culture work, and the main person who is trying to investigate the whole thing, and he's appreciating the Japanese culture and trying to solve the murder mystery that the book talks about. And where I'm coming back is, in the world that we're living today, where AI is getting a dominant force, where there's so much of unrest, it is very important to acknowledge that we do not live in a cocoon anymore. It's a flat world. There's so many cultures, so many disciplines, so many different rigors and formulation that is there around us, and it is important to appreciate it, acknowledge it. You may not agree to some of those notions, but appreciating it will help you to navigate in this 21st century, especially rapidly changing 21st century with AI. So that's one thing I wanted to put out there, that please appreciate culture, and that comes with travel at times. If not, read. There are many other ways to see that. In the world we live, it's a cosmo world. You'll see people from different walks, appreciate, acknowledge their culture, their values, and make sure that you respect that accordingly. That was my number 9. And then I will go to number 10 is the horseman diseases, which brings me back to Peter Attia. Peter Attia talks about longevity. It's about living a long life but a healthy life. And he talks about four horseman disease. And the reason it was very intriguing to me is from three angles. Number one, let's first talk about the horseman disease. These are cardiovascular disease which are related to cancer, disease which are related to your neural health, for example, Alzheimer and dementia, things like that, and metabolic related disease like diabetes and all. So these four diseases actually, believe it or not, kills about 90% of population who are killed by disease, of course, not by accident and other forms and measures. And what Dr. Peter Attia talks about is that the medicine world that you follow today is very reactive, and they are treated when a disease is already there. So the whole notion is how you can attack it beforehand, and rather than trying to solve that issue when you already have the disease. Because once you have it, you try to live with the disease, which is a very difficult life to live with. Like diabetes, for example, once you have it, you have it. You have to take, depending on type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is not in your control mostly, but type 2 disease, I'm talking about diabetes, you live with that disease state for a longest period of time with medicine and whatnot, right? The second thing that I want to highlight is that all the disease states are related. So if you get diabetes, the chances of getting dementia, chances of getting Alzheimer, chances of getting any cardiovascular disease is much more higher. So watching the corners are very important in horseman disease. And the third and the most important point is that you have to measure yourself time and again. And there are measurements he spoke about, which some of them are I was not even aware of. I never done it as well. Things like, when you go for your normal body scan or normal checkout, how many of us does DEXA scan, for example? How many of us goes for a VO2 max training check, for example? This is a very critical aspect for longevity and something that he talks deeply about. Okay, so that's my next point. Read that book, by the way, Outlive. It's one of the life-changing book that I read early part of this year. Coming to number 11 is sleeping, and there are so many books. There are books written by James Nestor. There are many authors who have written books on sleep, and sleep is very, very important. What I appreciate about sleep is that when you have a good night's sleep, the day looks so bright to you, and getting that 8 hours of sleep is very important. I have seen people who take it as a battle scar or a badge on their on them by saying that, look, I can survive by sleeping 4 hours. I'm such a workaholic. Bad show, because there are obscene number of studies done, and there are so many correlating factors which says that if you have you can be healthy, but if you're not sleeping well, your longevity is directly hit, your productivity is directly hit, and your mental happiness also is directly hit. So make sure that you bring sleep into your main equation. And also another point I want to highlight is understanding sleep is very important. It's not about I sleep 4 hours in a day and then I'll use the weekend to sleep the entire weekend so I'll catch up. Sleep is nothing known as catch up in sleep. You cannot catch up in sleep. Sleep is very related to your healthy well-being. There's a book written by James Nestor again on breath, which is a chapter on sleep, that how by not sleeping well you're getting all of those diseases where you have to use CPAP, you have asthma is on the rise and things of those nature. So I just want to highlight that bring sleep into mainstream. I know a lot of people suffer from not getting sleep. There's a different video I'll record about what you can do, at least my experiences, because I practice those and I off and on I am getting about 78 hours of sleep, which is so important for functioning well. Not in a particular order, but I'm going to the next one, which is about flow. I recorded two videos by Goldie Rat and his daughter has written two books. One is on the flow, one is the goal. And flow is a book which talks about how you should work and function. And though there's a video, two videos I have recorded on top of it. I just want to highlight one point here, which is about multitasking. We all glorify multitasking so much, and we say that great, whosoever multitask must be genius. But what happens when you multitask is that you're not able to give equal attention to any one of those, and you falter, and you do mediocre. Even if you do not falter, you'll do mediocre work, and the output will be, by far from the standards that you'd like to see. So avoid multitasking. Rather, in a flow, you should basically come naturally to you, understand your bottleneck, and work accordingly. So there are many other points, but I wanted to highlight that to you. Then I'll move to the next one, which is storytelling. Storytelling is such an important aspect that I wanted to highlight. What is storytelling? The human being as a Homo sapiens, if I talk about, has survived because of storytelling. If you look at our ancestors, our chimpanzees, for example, or Neanderthals, for example, they have brain like us. They were standing on their 2 feet. They were living in tribe. They can communicate as well. Where they lack is that they could not tell stories. They could not link things together, and that kind of has helped human being to live in connected or interdependent connected network. We all live in a story, right? We believe a story. Otherwise, most of the thing is actually non-existence. If you see, country is a story that has been told to us, that we have been patriotic to a country because the borders are defined. Anything that you can think about, right, is all but nothing a manifestation of human mind and story that we have told to ourselves. It is critical that if you want to be successful in your life, you should be a good storyteller, because when you tell a story, we can bring things together. You can bring a milieu together, you can community together. And as a leader, if you want to succeed in your life, to tell a story, linking things together, bringing cultures together, bringing different people from different walks of life together, making them believe. Storytelling has been wrongly used as well in the past. A classic example is Hitler during 1930s. The story he told the world is about fascism, that how it is important to live for the country, and how wrong he was. And we have seen that the after effect of that, right? The Second World War and everything that happened during the Nazis' rule to Jews and others, right? And it's important that telling the right story is also as important as telling story. I also want to highlight that importance of breathing as my next point now. Um, there is a way that breathing can really, really help you in seeing the world in a different light. I have a video on that as well. Please check it out. Again, it's a book written by James Nestor, which just by controlling your breathing, you can control a lot of dimension, your mental peace, your outlook towards life, your health awareness. You can actually reverse age yourself as well, which will be very intriguing to you by just controlling the breathing pattern. There are many breathing exercises he has spoken about. Or one thing that was very intriguing to me is that when you breathe, we usually believe that taking more breath inside is good, but I think optimum level is what author talks about. See, at the end of the day, understanding this way that our organs are always hungry of oxygen. So the more you breathe in, your lungs are working to pass this oxygen through blood routine to hemoglobins to your different organs. And moment the oxygen is there, they have to use the oxygen to produce carbon dioxide. So you're overworking your organs if you breathe too much, if that makes sense. Author says the study has been done that if you breathe about 5.5 breaths per minute, that's the right pattern you should do. So you can practice that, like 5 seconds of breathing or 5.5 seconds breathing inside, then 5.5 seconds of breathing outside. If you do that, you can get in the routine. It's very hard to do that. Apple Watch or some of the smart watches, you can measure it, and you can see that typically I've seen people in the range of 12 to 16 breaths per minute. Imagine you have to bring it down to 6 breaths per minute. So that's what you should focus for. There are many other aspects he's spoken about, but that's one thing that I wanted to highlight. Beyond that, I also want to highlight that the book I read recently, Nexus, written by Yuval Noah Harari. Understand, Yuval Noah Harari is a historian. He appreciates history, and he has written a book on AI and the impact of AI in the society. Brilliantly written book, but what I really loved is he linked history to AI. There is a video I'm recording next, which is on that particular book. But where I'm going with this particular point is that anything that you want to learn from a future standpoint, learning the history is very important, and you can see correlation, which you can bring to bear from the overall standpoint. Um, AI right now, as much of it is going to give a lot of boon in terms of acceleration, it is a curse as well, and there are dimension where author talks about where human being can be extinct, where AI can take over in extreme situation. And it is so important that learning from history how we can make sure that the AI doesn't become another dictator and take control of our life. There are many examples, and one I want to take is the next one, where the case was about Loomis versus Wisconsin, and this was a crime that Loomis did, who was predominantly, I think, a traffic jam. But when the police inspector arrested him, he saw that there were other charges as well he can put him on, and he confessed to some of the crime, but he was put in jail for about 6 years. He challenged that, and by saying that he first went to the high court by saying that it is for a crime what I did, it is very very small, and why you are putting me in jail. So he went all the way up to Wisconsin Supreme Court, and there they use a software known as Compass, which uses algorithm based point to decide whether a person should be put in jail or not. And what apparently happened was the algorithm decided that this person is dangerous. Now he challenged that by saying that I want to see the working of that, but the software creator of Compass said that I cannot share my secret weapon with you in terms of how we decide the algorithm to work. And the court could not provide. And the point to drive home here is, even if the author would have provided all those, or sorry, the court would have provided, or the software company would have provided all those information, can you decipher that information to draw a conclusion? Because there'll be hundreds of factors or thousands of factors that it may be weighing to draw a conclusion. And human mind, by virtue of it, there are only certain factors they can take into consideration to decide or to debate or to come to conclusion. So that's one thing that really opened my eye by saying that, look, there is a verdict done by algorithm, which is not, if you see in the future, this is what is going to happen, and where we will have social ranking and will be decided based upon some of the behaviors we have taken, or behaviors we have, or some of the steps we have taken. Decision will be made on us accordingly. By the way, Loomis went all the way up to Supreme Court, where it was rejected. There's a very convoluted, very abstract way of saying that, look, in the future the court should know that what the algorithm is doing and blah blah blah. But again, to my point, even if they know, is a judge equipped enough to learn all those complicated process of how algorithm works and can take a decision accordingly? So something to watch out for. This is again from the book Nexus that I recently read. I will take it to the next notch now. Number 17, if I'm not wrong, is Nosedive. There's a movie known as Nosedive. I have not seen it. I'm going to check it out. In some social currency. Predominantly, what social currency means is that based upon how you conduct yourself in your day-to-day life, you get points like credit card, credit score points, and it could be how you're drinking your water, to how you're coming to your party, to anything that you have done. Let's say a traffic violation, you add point, you subtract points, and you have a social currency, and that will determine whether you get access to elite clubs, whether you can drive on the road, whether you can fly on a plane, and things like that. And Nosedive is actually a movie on that, where the story, as the author says, is about this lady who wants to buy a house in a elite area where her brother lives, but she is short of certain points to get access to that property. And what she learns is that if she can go to a party where some of those elite people are coming, if you brush her shoulder accordingly, she will get certain social points. And apparently she gets invited to the party, she goes there, but there's an accident where she accidentally spill wine on one of very high elite social credit partner, and from there it is a nosedive. One thing leads to another, and her points keeps coming down to a point where she lands up in jail. There is the good news is that a lot of the world democratic countries are saying social currency is not a good point to do. But who knows? In tomorrow, we'll be all judged by the action we have taken. Imagine every move that you're taken is getting watched by AI bot, and then you are decided where you should be or we should not be. Dangerous, isn't it? That's the point. This nosedive talks about. That's number 17 for you. And I will now go to number 18 is a very intriguing concept of psychedelics. I do not have a point of view on that, but recently I heard Paul Rosalie on Lex Friedman. By the way, Paul has come on both Joe Rogan show as well as Lex many times, and I heard only one of those episodes, like 3.5 hour long episode. Very intriguing. If you do not know who Paul Rosalie is, he is the forest man, the Amazon man. He has actually stayed in Amazon for a number of years. I think, if I'm not wrong, about 12 years, and his job is to save Amazon. I think that's what he committed himself from. He's from New York. He lived in the jungle. Or he rather lives in the jungle. I don't know for how long he will do that, and by doing so, he is generating awareness. He runs a NGO by which he collects fund to see how he can educate people, loggers, local government, protect the tribe, protect Amazon forest. And this particular episode, which I listened to by Lex actually went to Amazon forest in Peru, and he recorded this whole thing right in the jungle. So pretty intriguing, with candle lights and all. So if you have time, go ahead and check it out in Spotify, where he publishes his channel. Regardless, what I want to talk about is psychedelics here, which is very, very interesting. They spoke about ayahuasca, which is an Amazon-based psychedelic, and I really love how Paul Rosalie explained it. And it was asked to him by saying that, look, what it basically means to you. So he said, look, in our human brain is like there are multiple rooms on our brain, right? So there are rooms we have access to, which we daily access. We go there. The rooms we have access, we seldom go there. Rooms which are under lock and key, we have access, but we have a lock on top of it. We dread to go there because there are bad memories, maybe. And then there are rooms we do not even know they exist. I saying that by taking ayahuasca, he was able to at least connect to a supreme power. He was able to get access to those rooms which he never thought were existing. Very nice way of putting it. I know that psychedelics are illegal in the US at this point in time now. We do not know tomorrow it will happen. I listened to Trump's audio now that Trump is the elected new president of the country in the US. He said that he is going to allow psychedelics. We'll see for that to unfold. But I'm very intrigued by this whole concept. But I'm also very scared. Scared on two front. One, obviously, on the physical part of it, because Lex also took it, but when he took it, he was like vomiting. He was on the floor. It was he was not in a good physical shape. And second is, I don't know what I'm going to access. Do I really want to access to that part of my brain, which is hidden for some reason, maybe? So that's something to talk about. If you have some experience or any thoughts, please do share with me. That's number 18, by the way. There are four more to go. Number 19 now is on mentorship. I read a book, Mastery, which deserve many videos by itself. Great book, which talks about how do you master yourself on things that you believe in. Robert Greene has a way to tell story. If you have read his other books as well, the 48 Laws of Power, if you divide the stories on different chapters, give lessons from the history, link it back to his hypothesis, then he creates a law or whatever channel you want to talk about. Particular point, mentorship, is said very beautifully by saying that, look, always find a mentor, otherwise you waste time on learning from your own mistakes. How beautifully said, right? Life is too short from learn from your own mistakes. So find a mentor from who you can learn. I think no matter what age group you are, no matter what level of life you are, you can always find a mentor, and finding the right mentor is also very important. And I always seek for that. Today I find it in a lot of friends, but there are few people I can call them as life coaches or mentors for me, who have truly shaped me to a person who I am today. Okay. That brings me to number 20, which is about mythology. See, politics and mythology actually works, they prefer to work in a particular order. Have you noticed that? Um, any religion, Hinduism, Judaism, Christianity, there are rules defined, right? Or where you are required to behave in a particular way, and that's the order they want. And they want the entire sect, the entire milieu to follow that. Politics is also the same, more so when it is more of a totalitarian politics. They want to align people to in a particular rule and a concept. This I learned again from Harari's book of Nexus. It kind of was very, very self evaluation for me or learning for me as well, that why this particular thing happens. Because if you see any mythology, it actually goes a level up. Mythology says that there is a book of God which is beyond a human, and hence you cannot challenge them. So even if you learn over a period of time, it may not be right. You don't have the heart to challenge it, and you will never challenge it, and that's the reason why you totally and supremely go and follow that particular pattern. I think in the world we are living in, if AI becomes that book again, we'll be in a very, very sorry state again, because we'll all fall in a line believing certain thing. And that kind of came to my mind, and a learning to see that can we challenge the normal routine, even if you know that it is against some of the policies or the rules that you followed. If you truly believe that it is not right, can we challenge it? It's a question, nothing that I'm practicing, but I thought I'll put it out there. And then I recently read a book by Malcolm Gladwell known as the 21 Lessons from, sorry, not 21 Lessons, my bad. It's a book, The Revenge of the Tipping Point. So it was, I think he wrote Tipping Point in 2006, 7 time frame, so almost about touching 2 decades. So he wrote The Revenge of the Tipping Point. Beautifully written book, similar to the line of Tipping Point, but Tipping Point was by far the best. But this book was also greatly written. But one of the concept he talked about in this book, which he always does, is magic third. And he has given many examples to prove that point. What magic third basically means is that to change the view of any particular group, if the majority stands between a quarter and a third, the the belief of the group completely changes to the group which has a third, which is very intriguing. He has taken many examples. One example was about college admission, and the famous example was taken was the recent Supreme Court case on Harvard University, right? So which talks about how they are gaming the university, why they need the admission process to be completely convoluted, because what they are trying to do is that they know that if they have any particular group gaining a third of the population, the entire thing can skew, the entire philosophy principles can skew to that line. There are many examples they have taken. One example which I really liked was about women in board, and the example was, typically if you see women in board, which is by the way for a good reason changing now, you will have only few women, right? It will be never the third of the population in the board will be women, it will mostly men, and hence their voice is not that heard. And there's an example he takes that how as the women population in the board increased, how the entire nature of those companies they are supporting, kind of change in a good manner, right? So read that book. I'm also going to record another video on that. That's in my to-do list to talk about the learnings I have from The Revenge of the Tipping Point. Intriguing name, isn't it? And that will bring me to the last point, which is about the adventure of Sherlock Holmes, believe it or not. So I put fiction, one of the fiction towards the end as well. Uh, I'm sure most of you have read about Sherlock Holmes. If not read, watch series, watch movies and all. This book, particularly what I read, was about 24 different stories. And one thing that came to my mind is something which is so very obvious, but we don't see it because we are so biased. And any story you take, all the 24, oh, sorry, I think 12 stories, my bad. All the 12 stories I read, every story, things were in front of the eyes. I couldn't make it out reading the book, But obviously, Sherlock Holmes is Sherlock Holmes. You could find nuances in simple things, and you can not only find but correlate it, and then can investigate and find the real cause. So the question that comes back to us is that in the sea of information that we have today, in the plethora of videos, audios, text files, knowledge that we have today, can we see pattern? And those who can see pattern, those who can connect things, are the one who will be the winners for tomorrow. So with that, I truly appreciate you listening to it. I'll be patiently waiting for your feedback on your thoughts. Maybe you have few other lessons you have learned you want to share with me. I look forward to hearing from you, and thank you once again for supporting my channel. The best way to support my channel is following my channel and provide your feedback on the channel, either in the YouTube channel itself or in any of the social media channel where I post my video. Thank you. Until next time, take care. Bye.